Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Coffee Chat with Matt. We are finally here in May. You've all made it through the long Chicago winter, and I don't know about you, but I couldn't be more excited. The plant material, both here in the garden center as well at home, everything's waking up, all the colors, all the fresh green growth, the new life, new leaves on trees, all of that. I just absolutely love this time of year. So today I brought a kind of a new topic that I've had a few people ask me about. So what I wanted to talk about today was plants that provide fragrance to your landscape, whether it's in a pot on the patio or in the landscape itself. I've got some annuals up here. I've got some kind of tropical plants that you could even bring in during the winter. And then I have some plants that are going to grow perfectly fine in your yard and will overwinter here. So I've got a good mix of things to talk about. So depending upon what you're looking for planting in your own, at your own home, hopefully you'll be able to find something here. I can tell you that I have chosen correctly because the stuff up here, I mean, it's almost overpowering with just with the plants that I have here right now. So I don't know about you, but I love having fragrant plants in the landscape, especially on our patio. I usually try to do some tropical plants in pots on the patio that have good fragrance. I love to put things into the landscape that have good fragrance. So that's where I came up with the topic. So let's just jump right in here. Again, in no particular order whatsoever. We'll start with these two beauties right here in front of me. This might be a group of plants that you're familiar with. These are called dianthus, and sometimes you'll hear people call them Sweet William. Lovely, hardy, very, very hardy, cold tolerant perennial for our landscape. Mounded foliage, typically in the 6 to 12 inch range in terms of its overall height. I brought two up here. This one is called Spiked Punch, and it has a beautiful two-tone double pink flower. So when I say double, that typically refers to the number of petals or the petal count in there. So some of these are kind of flat petaled. This is a double flower, red in the center with a nice hot pink or bright pink around the perimeter. Has a really kind of spicy clove fragrance to it. It is a heavy bloomer. These have been blooming for a couple weeks already. It'll continue to bloom on and off all throughout the summer months. It blooms again when it's cool. So it has a really long bloom time. When these are all done, what I like to do when the flowers are all spent, I'll just take this plant, put it like you're putting your hair in a ponytail, and just cut all those flowers off. We call it deadheading. So we'll trim all those spent flowers, and that'll usually cause a rebloom. So I really like these a lot. They like fold apart sun. This one is called Frosty, and it's part of the Early Bird series. This is part of the Fruit Punch series. Look great together. So if you like to do mixes, these are going to be wonderful border plants or kind of a big mass. Honestly, they also do really well in containers, so this is absolutely something that you could put in a pot with other plant material too. So I really like these dianthus, and that clove fragrance is really unique. I guess we'll try to stick to, I'll make a little bit of an order here. I've got kind of a theme or groupings going here. So those two were perennial plants. These three here are perennial plants. The first one, or the next one that I have, is called Wild Bergamot. It is actually a native plant here. It's absolutely one of my favorite prairie plants. Its botanical name is Monarda fistulosa, and you'll find this in ample supply throughout our prairies and natural lands. It has a beautiful purple flower on it in the kind of midsummer, but last year, because we had a nice amount of rain last year, I think this bloomed for probably the better part of 2.5 months, maybe 3 months. So it was blooming June, July, and certainly into August. So I really like these. This is a plant that the Native Americans used to use to make tea. You can take these leaves and put them into like sun tea or something along those lines. It has a wonderful sort of a citrusy, minty fragrance to it. It is a member of the mint family. Beautiful, beautiful little plant with purple flowers. It will get about 30 to 40 inches tall. So, you know, 2.5, 3.5 feet, somewhere in that range. But lovely plant, full to part sun. surprisingly tolerant of partial shade too. I've had really good luck with Monarda in general, so all the different types of bee balms and Monardas. I've had really good luck with these in partial shade to even, you know, not quite full shade, but kind of nearing that. So the really versatile plant there. The next one I brought up is, this is a newer variety for us. This is a lavender. We've done lavender for a long time. This particular one is called Sensational, and this was sort of the next generation from a variety called Phenomenal. Sensational is a sport of Phenomenal with extra blooming power. So these have the wonderful lavender fragrance. You know, you get that in soaps and other fragrances, candles, all that kind of stuff. This is the same thing. You can use it for cocktails. You can use it as a garnish. There's a lot of uses for lavender. I brought this particular one up for two reasons. This is one that we grew here, and this is actually from last year's crop. It gives us a nice, healthy, woody crop here. So you can kind of see this has got a lot of nice stems in there, and they're almost woody down at the base, which is the way that lavender grows. And so having a 2-year-old plant like this gives you a big head start. But the reason that I wanted to bring this one up in particular is you can kind of see some of the older foliage in there from last year. Lavender is basically an evergreen in the landscape here in northern Illinois. So its leaves will stay gray or green all winter long. You are going to get a little bit of winter damage, a little bit of dryness in some foliage. And I just kind of wanted to point that out in here. This is totally normal to have a little bit of this kind of brown or yellow foliage in there. If I look down at the bottom, I can see a few brown leaves that are kind of dried up and curled there. Again, totally normal. The reason that I wanted to show you that is also, while you're seeing some of last year's foliage falling out, we've got these fresh growth tips on every single stem here. So what you're seeing here where it's green versus the green is that fresh new growth. So when people ask me about how to care for lavender, I normally tell them to wait until this time of year, look for the green healthy growth. Sometimes some of those woody stems from last year are completely dead and dried out. If we have a harsh winter, sometimes they die down to the ground. That is totally normal. But if you have a mild winter like we did this past winter, my lavender at home looks, well, sensational. Looks really, really good. So all I had to do was give it a light haircut, maybe the upper couple of inches, got a little light haircut, and it's all growing back and filling out now. So love this. The bonus is the really, really nice purple, bright purple flowers all throughout the summer months. So this is Sensational Lavender. I think that's a really good one. It likes full sun. It likes well-drained soil. And it does not like to get overly wet in the wintertime, which I know sounds weird, but especially if you have an area like near the driveway or sidewalk or somewhere where you tend to pile up the snow, that might not be a great place for it. It doesn't like that, you know, snow melt in the springtime where it's just kind of sitting in that snow and moisture. So, but really, really good plant. It'll get about 24 to 30 inches wide, so it's actually a pretty wide plant, by about 18 to 24 inches tall. The next one I brought up is a great rock garden or ground cover plant. This is called Elfin Thyme. It has this really nice little fragrant foliage. If you walk on it, like if you have it between the cracks and crevices of say a flagstone patio or in a rocky area next to the pool or something like that, and you step on it, when you crush the foliage, that's when you can get the good fragrance out of thyme. This is an edible plant. This is thyme that we use in cooking and things like that. So we carry a bunch of thyme in our herb and vegetable program. So if you go into our herb house, you'll find lemon thyme, English thyme. I think there's a silver thyme, which has kind of a variegated foliage. This is a nice little landscape one that gets bright pink flowers during the midsummer. So this is called Elfin. It has tiny, tiny leaves and tiny purple flowers. Really nice plant for a fairy garden, rock garden, pond, waterfall, or just a nice little border. It's kind of hard to tell, but you can sort of see that it's growing out over the edge of the pot. and it'll do the same thing. If you had a little rock wall or a boulder or something, it'll actually grow and sit right on top of the rock or right on top of the rock wall. Another one that really likes it on the dry side, try not to put this in a really wet location. You're not going to want this in an area where the sprinklers are constantly hitting it if you have an irrigation system or something like that. If you tend to be an overwaterer, this would not be a great plant for you, but exceptional fragrance, really hardy, very miniature, 1 to 2 inches tall, maybe 4 to 8 inches wide or something like that. So that's another really good one. I guess I have one more perennial here, and then we'll jump over to some other groupings. So this is a peony that I brought up called Raspberry Sundae. I brought this up because we're just getting into peony season. One of the things that I love about peonies is in the spring when they're first coming out, the foliage tends to have a really nice kind of burgundy reddish color. Now that we're starting to get some consistent warmth and some overnight warmth, you're going to start to see the leaves starting to turn green, but they were a beautiful sort of purple burgundy color for the last few weeks. You can still see some of that in the stems, those really nice kind of red stems, almost looks like a rhubarb. This particular one though, Raspberry Sundae, is a very fragrant double flower. So again, double flower means it's got the multiple petal count, and you can see that it's all budded up here, but kind of maybe zoom in on the picture here of the tag. So big, fragrant, double pink flower. I love Raspberry Sundae. I love the peonies in general. Peonies are a very long-lived, very deep-rooted perennial plant. So they tend to live for a long time. Something that you'll find on old farms. They used to make rows out of them to plant them along a fence line, things like that. So wonderful plants. They're going to get anywhere from 30 inches to say 3.5 feet, something like that. Some of them do require a little bit of staking or a peony cage of some kind to offer them some extra support. Those big flowers do tend to want to flop a little bit. This is a great time of year. If you haven't done that already, this is a great time of year to get a peony cage or a grow-through ring or some type of staking system in there before they get to the flowering stage. This is the time to do that. It's much easier now than after they start blooming and you've got a heavy rain and they start to flop over. So just a little tip there. So, I guess I do have one more perennial. I forgot about this guy. A little nice ground cover for the shade. This is Sweet Woodruff. It has this wonderful star-shaped leaf pattern, which I think is really unique. It loves shade to part sun. It grows about 4 to 6 inches tall and spreads out really nicely. And in the late spring, early summer, this is going to get covered in profuse white fragrant flowers. So really nice little ground cover, delicate looking, but very durable plant. This is another one that would be used in mass. It does well under trees. It does well as a border plant along the front edge of the landscape, but really nice plant. It's called Gallium odoratum or Sweet Woodruff, and that's a good one. All right, moving right along. I guess we'll go into a couple of tropical plants next. This one here, which you can see is already in bloom, this is a type of jasmine called Star Jasmine. This particular one is called Madison. Madison, most Star Jasmine are kind of pure white. This one here, Madison, tends to be extra fragrant, but sort of has a creamy yellow color to it. This is inside the office here where I'm at now. This is almost overpowering. I mean, it has just a wonderful, wonderful fragrance and is going to bloom basically all summer long. You can see it. This plant comes on a little bamboo trellis. It is a vining plant. So this is something that you could put in a container on your patio with like a metal obelisk or some type of like a wooden structure, a trellis. It could grow on an arbor. Of course, it is a tropical plant, so it will die in the winter if you leave it outdoors. A lot of people like to bring jasmine in for the winter. You can absolutely, if you had it growing on something tall, you could absolutely trim that, cut it back, put it into a plastic pot and move it indoors for the winter. Keep it in a nice, bright, direct sun window. A west or south facing window would be ideal for this. But Great fragrance, loves full sun, and hard to beat the jasmine for fragrance. We do have night blooming jasmine, which is a really cool one, hard to find, as well as sambach jasmine, which is kind of a cool one too. So we have, excuse me, I think a couple different types of white jasmine, the Star Jasmine, the night blooming, and so there's a lot to choose from there. All right, moving right along. Always one of my absolute favorites, and when these are in bloom in the greenhouse, I cannot stand to walk past them without stopping to smell these. This is a gardenia. You can see this has just absolutely gorgeous, healthy green foliage with that really nice glossiness to the foliage. This is a variety called August Beauty. It's going to have a very nice, large, white, fragrant flower. I think among the fragrant flowers, I think gardenias are probably one of my absolute favorites. They have a really sweet, kind of floral, citrusy, spicy fragrance without being crazy overpowering. Just really, really lovely plant. Again, as a good tropical plant, this can be kept out on the patio all summer long. They do typically bloom here from, mid to late May all the way through hard frost. If you bring it in, you might even get more flowers out of it. So this is another one like the jasmine where you could bring that in for the winter and put it back outside the following year. I really like the gardenias a lot. We also do these on what we call on a standard or as a single stem. So we have them that look like a tiny little tree, which are really cute, again, for patio pots, more of like a topiary type look. So I really like these. This is another one for full sun to partial shade. In other parts of the country, gardenias are perennial or are a shrub. In our area, they unfortunately are an annual. Even some of the varieties that say they are cold hardy are not cold hardy here. They're like zone 6, 7 hardy, which you'd really have to get down to like St. Louis or south for those to be hardy. So we don't have any perennial gardenias up here right now. Maybe someday, you never know. I brought 3 plants up that live in a couple of places here. We have them in our main greenhouse with some of our other floral items. We also have them in our herb and vegetable house. So this is one of my favorite basil plants. This is called African Blue Basil. It is for sure the most ornamental of the basils. So you start off with these really cool purple stems, which I really like a lot. If you look at the leaf itself, the leaf veins are purple, which kind of gives it this really cool two-tone appearance. The bottom of the leaves are purple, which is really nice. And then you've got this really nice purple flower. The hummingbirds love this. It's hard to see probably on the camera. Maybe we can zoom in here. But the flower actually does have a little tubular throat. So the hummingbirds do like this. I've done this in the ground in my garden every year for the last couple of years. I did it in a pot the first time and then in the ground the last few years. It typically gets about probably 30 to 36 inches tall and wide. It still tastes really good even though it blooms. So that's a little counterintuitive because a lot of the herbs, basil included, once they start to bolt, which is a term for when they start to go to flower and then seed, they start to get kind of bitter tasting. African Blue Basil does not. It still tastes really good and it's a free bloomer. It just keeps blooming and blooming and blooming all summer long. And just from this one little plant, I'll get a huge basil shrub by midsummer. So it's a great one. As I mentioned, we use this in containers. In the greenhouse, we use this. We also sell it in our herb section. So that's African Blue Basil. And I also brought up our 2 mosquito repelling plants. These are for sure the 2 fragrant plants that we sell the most of. This one here is a lemongrass, and this one is a citronella plant or citronella geranium. Wonderful fragrance. This is something where if you rub the foliage, it smells like a really nice kind of lemony citronella type fragrance if you're familiar with citronella candles. The lemongrass, same thing. With this, you can either rub the foliage, really nice lemon fragrance. You can chew on the foliage, tastes just like lemon. It's really cool. You can crush both of these up in your hand and rub the oils on your skin to make a really nice, natural mosquito or insect repellent. Both of these are very easy to grow. The lemongrass likes it on the dry side. You will find on the market, there are two plants that are commonly sold as lemongrass. We oftentimes sell both of them. This is the more edible, more desirable mosquito repellent variety. We grow these ourselves. This will end up with larger blades. It will overwinter in the house if you want to bring it in the house. I know that it is edible. A lot of people will use this for digestive issues, different things. So something to check out if you're interested in that. But so lemongrass and citronella plant, these are our mosquito repellers. You can put these all over your patio. You can put them together in a pot. And then as I mentioned, you know, if you're going to go work in the yard, you just pick off one of these leaves, kind of crush it up in your hand, and then rub that on your exposed skin. And you've got your mosquito repellent and 100% all natural, DEET free. All right, I've got just a couple left. This is probably one of the, I think, prettiest roses I've seen in a while. This comes from the David Austin English Rose Collection. This one is called Olivia Rose Austin, and you can see a beautiful, very pale pink double flower. It has a wonderful kind of fruity floral fragrance to it. It's definitely not overpowering, but really nice. It's definitely something you can smell, but again, not overpowering. But I would suggest that if you had this in a container on the patio or near a window or your front porch or something like that, when you have, you know, 10, 12, 25, 30 flowers on there, I would bet this is going to smell pretty fantastic. This is a repeat blooming rose. It is an upright shrub type rose. It'll get about 3 to 4 feet high. David Austin roses are really good for cutting. They're really good for containers. We do try to carry the ones that are hardier here in the David Austin line. If you check out their website, or if you've ever flipped through their catalog, which is absolutely beautiful, you will see some absolutely gorgeous roses. Many of those are zone 6 and 7 hardy. We try to stick to the zone 4 and 5 hardy English roses. Obviously, they're just going to be better suited to our northern Illinois climate. So this is a great one. The bloom size is large. These are still some of the younger, earlier flowers. They will get a little bit bigger than this during the summer months. So really nice one. Full sun to actually partial shade. Some of these can tolerate a bit of shade. So this is something that if you had, say, an east foundation where you're getting some morning sun and afternoon shade, it would do fine. But if you had a full, hot, sunny location, it's going to do really well too. So I really like the David Austin collection. There are a ton of different colors available, from bright, rich purpley reds to whites and yellows, and some beautiful pinks like the Olivia Rose Austin. So that's a good one. And last but certainly not least, we couldn't really talk about fragrant plants without talking about lilacs. So this particular one here is called Lavender Lady, and it is a common lilac, or what we call a vulgaris lilac. So the common lilacs are your old-fashioned type lilacs. So if your parents or grandparents or whatever had a row of lilacs, or if you grew up on a farm and there was an old lilac hedge, something like that, those are what we would call common lilacs most often. And these plants have been around obviously forever. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of varieties on the market. Some of them are very uncommon. Some of them very common. Common purple, common white have been around forever. But there's a ton of different options available. Lavender Lady, as you can tell, has this really nice kind of soft purple color. It has a wonderful fragrance to it. It's great for cutting. Has a really nice fragrance. I wouldn't say it's as strong as some of the dwarf Korean lilac, which can oftentimes be overpowering because the plant just gets absolutely covered in the flowers. The common lilacs, you tend to have these really nice flower clusters all throughout the plant, rather than just the whole plant being covered by it. I personally like the look of that better. I like to see some green and some, so see some foliage and some flower on my plant more than I like a plant that is just covered, top to bottom, side to side with flowers. I know that, again, may be counterintuitive, but I think that looks, I think it looks really pretty when you get to see some of the greenery along with those beautiful, in this case, purple flowers. So common lilacs get quite large. They can get up to about 12 feet high. They live for a long time. They tend to be quite hardy and quite disease resistant. They do best in well-drained soil. They do best in full sun. They do take to trimming quite well. If you are just giving your lilac a haircut, I recommend doing it right after the plant is done blooming. So generally end of May is a really good time of year to prune your lilacs. If you have a lilac that has gotten out of hand, maybe it should have been pruned for the last couple of years and it just got away from you, you didn't have the time, whatever the case may be. If that is the case, then I would normally recommend waiting until the dormant season. So waiting until winter, after Thanksgiving sometime, but before Easter, and cutting the plant in half, or in some cases, I've actually recommended to customers to cut it all the way down to the ground and just let it rejuvenate. And they generally do quite well when you do that. The downside there is that lilacs bloom on old wood, which means that if you cut it down to the ground, you're not going to get any flowers that year. So that's why I suggest cutting it back lightly in late May. But if you have to do a significant cutting, you're just going to sacrifice the flowers for that upcoming season. So there are a ton of other fragrant plants out there. Of course, I picked some of the ones that I like the most. I picked some of the ones that are most fragrant, but there's a ton of great options out there. We've got some wonderful salvias. There's a wonderful shrub called Summer Sweet and Sweet Spire that has a really nice fragrance. So there's a lot of things out there to choose from, but I brought up some of my favorites. So I thought it would be kind of a fun topic this year. So I hope that you get a chance to get outside, work in the garden this year. Today, the weather is going to be absolutely wonderful. We've got Mother's Day coming up. The garden center is absolutely jam-packed. We have probably the best selection that we've ever had. As you can guess, I'm quite busy at this time of year. I haven't been out shopping at any other garden centers or checking out to see what other folks might have. But from the folks who have come in and had been to other places, they have assured me that our selection is second to none. So I hope you get a chance to stop in this weekend. And if you need a gift for Mom, stop in. We'd be happy to help you with that too. So hope you get a chance to get outside. Thanks.